Hey, what is up, voice community? I'm your host here, Charles, for this podcast episode. And I know we voice a lot of business owners and content creators and different brands in here as well. But when it comes down to business or just in life in general, I try to cover varieties of topics that can help different brands and creators and also whoever's listening that can be that can find value out of this podcast. And one of the other important things that I feel that is important to having a topic is like the topic of finance. Like often that's something that's dismissed and or maybe not as talked about in the family gathering just because it can be such a sensitive topic, or maybe it's just too much data to involve. So I actually met this guy. He's the owner of JSS Financial. I met him at one of my clients' event at Collab District, and I have the honor of bringing him in here to get to know a little bit about his business and how he helps out other businesses and other individuals as well. So I have here Byron Enriquez. How are you today, Byron?
Good, man. How are you? Thanks
Good.
for having me.
No, for sure. Thank you for being here. I know I just came back from LA. It's a bit of a drive, and you're coming out from Agora Hills.
And Agora Hills, yeah, so yes, a little bit of a drive. Spent a lot of time in LA as well, so that's one of my favorite places to be.
Nice, nice. Yeah, I'm glad you came in here, and it's not raining anymore, so that's nice. Because if it was raining and I was driving out from LA, I would have been like, oh.
Yeah, it would have taken us a couple of hours.
For
actually.
sure, for sure. Well, why don't we start off with a little bit about your background, Byron, so that for any listeners, they get to know where you're coming from and what kind of conversations we're gonna have from this podcast episode.
Yeah, no. So, like I said again, appreciate you having me on. It's always my pleasure to come out and share with people and talk a little bit about my experiences and what I've done. I've been in the finance world now for I want to say close to 25 years.
Wow.
Maybe a little bit more. So I got started when I was 4 years old.
Really?
Obviously, no, no.
It's a joke.
Yeah, it's a joke. But yeah, I've been in the finance world for about 25 years. I've done a little bit of everything. Done the banking world. One of the biggest things that I did for a long time was foreign exchange trading.
Oh wow,
So
Forex.
I was in forex, and so I was in the securities world. Did a lot of that. Eventually, that kind of spurred an interest in my life, and ended up going into the real estate side,
Okay.
the real estate finance side. So just spent the last 20, close to 25 years now, focused on real estate finance.
Okay. Cool.
So, for the last couple of years, I've owned a couple of different businesses, started them, sold them off, did a couple of different things to grow. I've also worked at a lot of the big lenders in the country, ran their whole platforms, ran their whole sales teams, ran their operations.
Really? Okay, I'm excited to dive into that aspect as well, because you're not just running a financial company, but also you've helped train people as well, right?
Yeah, so that was the biggest platform I had. A few years back, one of the last corporate jobs I had. I ran this credit union, and I ran their sales department. So I took an organization that was doing, in our industry, we were doing somewhere around I can't remember the numbers anymore, $40 to $50 million in business a month. And within 5 or 6 months of me being there, I cut their staff by 75%, and increased their business to over $100 million a month. So I reached a milestone there at that credit union, which had never been done. I was able to be the first person leading the charge, and I got them to $1 billion in business a year.
Okay. Gotcha. So now with JSS Financial, what is the primary objective for you guys to work with?
So I took the experience and the knowledge that I've had of the 25 years in the business, and helping grow companies, helping build sales teams, teaching people how to, grow a business, how to finance properties and do all these things. And we created a platform that's meant for the self-employed. It's meant for business owners, meant for real estate investors.
Nice.
And based on our relationships, and we do all forms of real estate finance, right? So we do residential, we do commercial, we do construction, ground up construction, we do rehab loans, we do development projects, land, industrial, cannabis. We do a little bit of everything that has to do with real estate. But what we specialize in is what are called private loans.
Okay.
So our loans are not your typical bank loan, right? Even though we do all the regular residential, we do all the government loans, we do all the traditional stuff, and we have an avenue for that. 98% of our business is private. So meaning you come to us for a loan, I underwrite it. I look at the values of the properties. I look at compensating factors, and I'll put together a package, and I sell that to an investor, a private investor that will fund your loan.
Okay.
Right, and you can usually get them done in 7 to 10 days.
Nice.
Without a lot of the red tape that a bank would have.
Okay. So it seems like you make it easier, you make it more accessible for investors and upcoming business owners as well, or maybe businesses that want to expand even more.
Exactly, and
right?
that's what we'd say. If you go to our website, and it's our trademark, it's our taglines. We're red carpet concierge service, right?
Oh wow.
We like to tend to a business owner who doesn't sometimes on tax returns. You're filing a lot of exceptions and you're writing stuff off, so your tax returns don't look as solid.
For sure.
Even though we know you have solid income. Right. So we've created programs, and we work with investors to create programs where that's not. We're not focused on that. We're focused on the asset. We're looking at the value of the property. We're looking at your ability. What's your game plan? What's your exit strategy for that?
Okay.
So we help business owners, obtain properties, buy commercial space, but also our big focus is real estate investors, right? If you're investing in real estate and you want to finance a property without all the red tape, be able to close same as cash in a couple of days. We can even finance a lot of your repairs. So if you're looking to flip a property, we can do that.
Interesting. So what would be the main difference with going something from a bank with a private loan?
There's a lot of them. I mean, a bank.
Main ones that you
yeah. So I mean, the main focus of a bank is they have to abide by certain guidelines that the CFPB and certain regulations that the government has set for them, meaning there's an ability to repay, meaning they have to check your income, they have to check your tax returns, they have to check your W-2s to make sure you have the ability to pay back that loan.
Okay.
Right? They're looking at your credit history, they're looking at the collateral, they're looking at your capacity and how much you can handle based off of the debts that you already have.
Nice.
Right? We don't look at that. Right? We're looking at your ability to pay, but just by saying, how does this property cash flow? Is it rented? How much is a lease for? We're looking at those types of things. We are looking at your credit a little bit. We're not heavy on the credit. Main thing is we're looking at what's your exit strategy. Is it a property you're going to sell? How much profit is it going to be in that property once you sell it? Are you looking to refinance out into a more traditional loan? What's the likelihood of that? So we're focused on that more than your tax returns.
Okay. So it seems like you also look at like how you guys can best fit with these businesses or investors in there, right? So you've been in the financial industry for a while. What made you transition into this?
For me, it was a natural progression. I think, at least I say so, right? I tell the story a lot that being Hispanic, coming from a first generation immigrant household, my parents worked very hard, but English was not their first language, right? And I remember
you were born here?
I was born here.
Okay.
Yes, but my parents were not. They immigrated here, back in the 70s. And, as much as they worked hard and, they still didn't, English was not their first language, so they still struggled with some of the contractual stuff and some of the things. And I know a lot of, kids, I don't say kids, but people like my generation who have come across that where your parents give you paperwork and they say, hey, read this for me and translate it. And I still remember, it just made an impact in my life. I was maybe 12, 13 years old, and my dad was refinancing his house. And he gave me a set of loan paperwork, and I think he was just trying to share with me a little bit, but he was like, hey, read it and tell me.
That's pretty cool.
And I remember it stuck with me. And then growing up, I got into finance and, just being in banking and numbers kind of make sense to me. I always tell everybody I'm just a nerd, I love spreadsheets. I love reading about, doing financial analysis on companies and things of that nature.
Right.
But then I also had a lot of family in real estate, in the real estate world as real estate agents. Okay. And they had said, hey, you should try real estate. You should try real estate. You should try real estate. And I got my license. I went out, sold my first house, and I said, this is not for me.
Really?
Driving people around, showing them a house and this and that. I'm a numbers guy, right? And that part of it just wasn't clicking for me. And then I had a mentor back then, older gentleman who was in commercial real estate, and he said, well, you have a finance background. Why are you trying to sell houses? He goes, why are you just not focus on the finance of that property, right? You have your license, you can get into that business, And I had, at that time, I didn't really know too much about it. And I just jumped in and I, quit my job, Forex trading at the time. And I got a job as a loan officer at a mortgage company.
Okay, cool. So then when you started to transition as a loan officer, what did that journey look like for you, F?
It was hard. I got in, wow, like I said, about 20 years ago, where it was busy and the time was busy and it was, there was a lot of business going on. But I went to work for a company that had no training. No, okay. It was like you had a license and you had a pulse and they hired you.
What year was this, if you don't mind me asking?
Like I said, 20 years ago. So,
okay, 2003, so before the first financial crash.
Yeah,
okay.
2003, 2004, right around that area, that time. And I started working in the business and so I go, I've been coming from the corporate world. I'm coming from the big banks, where you go through HR and you go through this and your hiring process orientation. Sure. And I get hired by this mortgage company and I come in the first day expecting HR, expecting orientation, and I get put in a little cubicle with 8 other guys and a phone, and he said, "Go get loans." And I said, "Okay, not really sure what to do with that, And I went to his office and I was like, "Where do I get loans from?"
Yeah.
And he got mad at me and just pretty much threw a spreadsheet at me and said, "Here, call these people." And I said, "What do I tell them?" Oh. He's like, "Just ask them if they need a loan." So for the first couple of weeks, I sat there and I made calls and I said, "Hey, sorry to bother you at dinner, but do you need a mortgage?" And I got hung up on hundreds of times.
Okay, I'm sure other mortgage officers or realtors know this process.
And then eventually, I listened and I spoke to my coworkers and I got recommended a few sales movies and I started doing that. And like I said, I'm a nerd. Like I really dove deep and I started learning. And by, I would say maybe the 4th or 5th month there, I was alternating between being the number 1 or number 2 producer in the company. Because I learned it because my style has always been not salesy. It's always been more education and teaching people and making people understand that I knew what I was talking about. But that spurred another passion in me, going into this business where in this business and in most sales organizations, there's not a lot of training involved, right?
Yeah.
For the simple reason, I think it's because of competition, right? There's people think, oh, if I train you to be a good salesperson, you're going to take my business away.
Yeah, scarcity mindset. Yeah,
that scarcity mindset where you're in these businesses you're commission guys, so it's tough for that. So. And the business has evolved, and now a lot of big organizations are hiring a lot of these sales trainers and doing this. But that created me, that caused, a desire in me to educate people. And along my career, I've developed some training tools, and I've developed some sales mentalities and some sales techniques where I've taught. And that's what I took to a couple of organizations that I was with, and we were able to double production and increase just based off of some of the tools and stuff that I brought up.
Okay, so you have a lot of experience as well with leading and understanding the markets in a way that you can expand. And you said yourself, right? Taking other banks,
credit unions, mortgage companies, and I've grown different organizations.
How did you get to that point? Like what was it to the point where you're like, oh, dude, like we can trust Byron to help us construct our organization so that we can pivot in a more positive direction?
Honestly, I don't know why anybody trusted me. I don't.
I always ask people.
No,
like, how they got to where they're at,
you're right. And I think the first, I got set up as a manager. First you started from the bottom. Okay. And you sell, and you're a good salesperson, and you do pretty well. And I actually wrote an article about this from one of the mortgage magazines a few years back. Is that most sales organizations or mortgage companies, for the most part, they take their top producing salesperson and they turn them into a manager. But they never teach them how to manage.
Okay, that makes sense.
Because they assume, you know how to sell, you're a good sales guy, you're a good mortgage person, you know how to teach people that.
No.
And you don't. Skill. It's a whole different skill set. So that's what happened to me. I was a good salesperson, top guy. They promoted me to be a manager, and I started managing, and I didn't even know what I was doing.
Really?
So I dove deep and I started studying and I hired a mentor myself and I started taking courses. And
so you're an invested student. Okay.
Yes. I'm invested or obsessive. One or the other,
It has to. One of them has to come out.
Yes, yes, but that's me, right? That's when I'm like passionate about something, I dive deep into the point where it's a lot, you know. So I did, and I started, talking to people, and speaking to people at other different organizations, and seeing what worked and what didn't work. And I went to seminars, and I did all of that, and I took some stuff from it, made it my own, and kind of put the spin on it, where I was able to create something that made sense. So not only at the organization I was with, I was able to teach people how to manage, which in turn taught people how to sell. So those techniques help the business grow.
Well, because I imagine, right? If you learn how to manage, because you duplicated your skill, you can duplicate your volume, right? So then,
and that's exactly what we did, right? That's the way you talk about it. That's in a nutshell. That's my secret sauce in sales. Is that it's you have to pick. I call them activities, and it's something, but it's duplicating it. And again, being the numbers guy that I am, I put a success rate, or I put a number behind everything, right? So it's like whatever you're doing, there's a metric behind it. So you can duplicate it as many times to get the result that you're looking for, right?
Right.
It's like for example, like you can say, if you want to make $100, but this activity only makes you $1, how many times do you need to do that activity?
Right.
You need to do it 100 times.
For sure.
Right? But some people have the mentality where I still want to make $100, but I'm only going to do this activity 10 times and hope for a different result. And once you figure that out, and it changes your mentality, and it changes your approach to sales, and it changes your approach to how you work in this business.
Interesting. Have you always been a conversation? I don't even know if that's a word. Like someone who likes to talk to people and build relationships? Because oftentimes, from my experience, finance and sales don't go together.
Yeah. So funny you say that. I tell people this, and people don't believe me. I'm an introvert.
Most finance people are.
I'm extremely shy.
Yeah.
If I go to a party, a cocktail party or something, my natural inclination is to go stand in the corner by myself. That's me. Right? I've forced myself over the years outside of that to do that, to go out and speak. I've spoken in front of groups of 500 people.
Right.
I get up on stage and I'll speak and I'll do this and I'll do that. But that is 100% outside my comfort zone. Doing this is 100% outside my comfort zone.
But you sound natural doing it.
I appreciate it. But it's taking a lot of work, and it's taking a lot of me convincing myself.
Gotcha.
Because like I said, my natural inclination is I'm just by myself, and I'm quiet. I do that, and because like I said, I'm a nerd. I love numbers, and spreadsheets make sense to me, and things of that nature.
Right. And a lot of business owners too, I see them trying to do things, especially when we're creating content, like they don't want to get in front of a camera, right? Or do things out of the ordinary. Like what was your motive or like motivation to change all that? Like you could have just said, you know what, I'll just stick to my numbers, do whatever I do, and then maybe someone will find me.
Some of it has been a necessity. You
just had to.
You had to have kids, and wanted a better life for us. So saw some opportunities, and I pushed myself to do so. So some of it was that. Some of it was luck. Some of it was I fell in some opportunities, and I had to figure it out. I had no choice, right? So
it's not like you're too perfect to be true.
No, not at all. Believe me. Look, I've worked my ass off. I've worked hard. I've done a lot of things. I've also failed miserably at things.
Yeah. So I was gonna ask about that. Talk to us someone like your failure moments that like made you like pivoted your life or create a whole 180.
Well, yeah. Look, so I mean, like I said, I've been in this business for 20 over 20 years.
Right.
So I've been through the crash. I owned another mortgage company back in 07, 08. Where I had 100-something employees. We were doing a ton of business. I used to advertise on the radio. I was voice on the radio. I did.
Oh shit!
Yeah, I did a ton of stuff like that, and we were busy, and we were doing some crazy, absurd things. Time I was picking up my daughter from school today and talking about some of our stories, and this was a little bit before she was born. Some of the stuff, and I was like, some of the things we did and spent money in certain stupid ways, and she was like, "Wow, when was that?"
Right.
And but. It was a different time, right? And things were booming, and things were, firing on all cylinders, and it was a lot of things were happening. But But then the market crashed, right? And the story that I tell people is this: is that back then we were doing we were busy and we were pretty big. We got approached by a big lender, a big bank at the time, to pretty much pilot a program here in the West Coast in California. So we were doing this program that eventually became a big program, and a lot of lenders started doing it. But we were doing a variation of it that nobody else did. So we were doing a lot of it, right? To the point where, and this isn't to get into the weeds of the business, but I'll kind of keep it very light. We would fund loans on warehouse lines, meaning I had a big line of credit, and I funded the loans on this line of credit, any mortgage loans, and then we sold them off on the secondary market. We sold them to these different banks.
Okay.
Right. So that's where my securities background comes in. Right. I was able to set up these opportunities where, I lend out the money on my own money, pretty much, and then I sell it at a premium to a bank. Right. We had forward commitments from these lenders because they said, hey, if you sold this product with these guidelines, we pretty much guarantee that we'll buy them from you. Right. So there's not a lot of risk. But to the point where there was one time I think it was, I don't remember the exact numbers, it was about $25 million worth of loans that I had done on my line of credit.
Wow.
Right?
And how does that even work? How do you even build $20 million of loans under your name?
I guess I had 100 employees. We had a call center. We were advertising on the radio. Like I said, we would do that. We were doing probably $50, $60 million a month in business.
Okay.
So that was normal for us. That was normal for us, right? But then I remember, having these $25 million worth of loans on our line of credit, meaning I have to pay them. I'm responsible for that money.
Right.
Right. And then you go to sell these loans to somebody else. They buy them off of you at a premium. You make some money, and that's the way the business works, right? So we have these $25 million worth of loans that I've done. I went out. I had a guy who sold our loans. Went out and sold them to this company. And back then, it was all done through FedEx. You put loan packages, physical packages, and you ship them out to their department.
And now you can do it digitally?
Now it's all digital. Yeah. They
Crazy.
sign some stuff off. A couple of days later, you get a wire for the money, right?
Right.
And we do this. We send out our normal package like we did every other week, and then we get a package back in the mail and it says return to sender.
What happened?
And then I'm like, that's like to the guy. I talked to the guy and I'm like, hey, what's going on? Like, what's happening here? And he's like, turn on the TV.
The crash.
It's like we're so involved in the minutia of the business that I was like, this is not going to affect us. Literally, the bankers that we would sell to on news were being let out in handcuffs.
Oh shit! Damn.
And if anyone knows in the business, you know who that company was.
Right.
You know what I mean? So all of a sudden, I owe $25 million, and I have nowhere to put it.
Dang.
So
how did you go? How did you turn that around?
So we have to convince these people to take a different kind of loan that somebody else would buy, or we sold them off at a discount at pennies on the dollar, and you
just lost profit.
We lost a ton of money. So that was the time that I had two business partners at the time that we decided, look, that's it. We held off for probably another year, 6 months to a year. There was a lot of infighting between our partnerships, so we decided to walk away. But I say this story because, like I said, I failed, right? It was like,
sure.
I had built this empire, or so I thought, and it all came crashing down, right? We didn't protect ourselves from the market. We didn't protect ourselves from different things. But it got to a point where for 6 to 9 months, I was depressed and I did nothing. And I sat there on my couch and it was just like, I didn't want to do anything. Because I felt like a failure, and I felt like I hadn't done my job for my family, and I had to, let a lot of people down.
Right.
Right. And I felt that, where do I go from here? Where do I go from here? And for the longest time, I didn't want to do anything, and it's not like I had a ton of money, because I didn't, and it was like, change my lifestyle and, adapted, and it just was not working out, and eventually after 6 to 9 months, it's just, I remember talking to people, and, some people got in my ear and they were like, dude, you got to wake up, you got to change things. And, luckily I was able to, but I started from the beginning again.
What did you do, if you don't mind me asking?
No, at the beginning I pivoted and I was like, you know what, I'm going to go work for, a real estate. A friend of mine had a real estate company that was selling foreclosures, like REO properties. And I was like, okay, that's enough. It's real estate related enough that I can understand, but it has nothing to do with mortgages. And I didn't want to touch that,
I imagine you'd be kind of...
But I had relationships at all the banks.
Right.
I know the banker lingo. I know what they're looking for. So I became a great liaison between the real estate agents selling those foreclosure properties and the banks looking to dispose of their assets.
Talk about still leveraging your resources,
yeah,
right?
So I was able to figure that out, and we did that for a couple of years. And then when that started kind of drying out, I went back into the mortgage business. A buddy of mine worked at a big bank, and he said, hey, we're looking to hire. And I was like, okay, well, you're looking for a manager? What are you looking for? He's like, no, I need an assistant. And I said, what? He's like, yeah, I need an assistant to come help me package my loans. And I took the job. 5 years later, I was running, a credit union. I was running a couple banks, running operations for a couple different places.
Oh, shit. That's an amazing story. I mean, I don't even know what I would do if I was building something and a financial crash happened. So now I'm actually curious, how are you preparing for that with this whole crazy, economy going with this inflation? And you heard about the banks from Silicon Valley as we're talking about this thing.
Well, I mean, look, it's interesting because I think we're in a time right now where it doesn't mimic a lot of there's not a lot of similarities between a lot of the crashes that we've had in the past.
Really?
Right? There is some similarities, but there's a lot of things that are happening inversely or happening a little bit differently. If you look at charts and you look at numbers and stuff, and we're not going to get into some of that stuff.
Right? It's too detailed.
It's too detailed and it's boring because I can speak for hours and then
thanks for being honest.
Yeah, I'll just bore people. But there's things that I think reading the market. In my opinion, I'm not seeing a real estate crash coming.
Okay.
We don't see values. We don't, one of the things that we're following is like I said, is data, right? We're looking at foreclosure rates. Foreclosure rates are still pretty low. We're looking at the fact that I think the last number I saw was like 45% of all homeowners have at least 20% equity in their properties. There's equity in properties right now. So there's some safeguards in place. Not only that, for me personally, I've adjusted my business. Right. So the fact that now we're working with private investor money, it's different, right?
Because you're not aligned from government.
Because we're not aligned by the government. We're not looking at Fannie Mae guidelines. We're not looking at if they change this or they change that.
Right.
When they raise their rates, it didn't really affect us. It's not really going to affecting us because, I represent investors' money.
Right.
And my returns on their money are still bigger and larger than the banks are because, like I say, quite frankly, our interest rates are a lot higher. We're more expensive than a bank.
Okay.
So,
but you guys provide a lot more value.
We provide something that they can't get anywhere else, right? So when we do that, the investors that we're pooling our money from, who fund our loans, we're providing them a pretty big return. So, when there's little financial turmoil, it actually benefits us a little bit because. Because there are a lot of these guys are, I can provide a bigger return than the stock market. I can provide a bigger return than the 401ks. I can provide a bigger return than their IRAs. So they rather give us the money to use because
they know that you can back your actions up. Right?
Well, that's exactly what we have a track record. We have a history. But not only that, all their investments are backed by real estate, are collateralized. There's equity in every loan that we do. So they're protected, and that's been my job is to build those investor relations that they know that they can put their money with us to be able to that are protected, But there is some fear, right? Because if there's if banks crash and there's liquidity issues, then yeah, we can have some problems, right? But that affects everybody
for sure. It has to affect.
There's bigger ramifications if we're seeing a liquidity crisis. My opinion. It's not going to happen.
Okay.
I think with a couple of things that the government has put in place, where the FDIC is looking to insure a little bit higher, and they're going to see some adjustments. I think to the FDIC in the next couple of months.
Right.
It's some big adjustments. Some things that I've heard or things that I've read. That $250,000 number is going to change. There's going to be some big adjustments to the FDIC.
Interesting. And just to let you know, Byron, I'm not a numbers guy. I mean, I'll look at it and I like solving problems, but every time someone like this talks about numbers, I stay quiet. I'm like absorbing things, trying to internalize things, put two and two together. Okay, this kind of makes sense a little bit. So I'm trying to simplify it for my little brain. So thank you for explaining to the simplest possible. So
I try to, because like I said, I know. Like my kids tell me, or my fiance says, I can get boring, and people could tune me out, pretty quickly, and I get it, right? Like, 'cause some of the stuff I talk about is deep, and don't get me started talking about cryptos and things like that, so I can get boring. So I know that sometimes, like, look, I have to explain it in a way where it makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. I had a question I was gonna ask you regarding, so you guys, because of your track record and your experiences and your past history with some of the records that you've done, this is why the banks trust you. And now, assuming that a business or an investor comes to you, this is why how to help them, but also figuring out how you guys can work with each other, right?
Well, yeah. So, I mean, a big part of what we've done is, like I said, build the relationships with the investors to fund our loans.
Right.
But we also have experience on the front end, meaning to help the end user, meaning the business owner or the person who's looking to finance a property. And we can help them, hey, look, I'm looking to flip a property. Well, we've done that, where we know we have a book of business where we've helped hundreds of people do that. So I can help you analyze your numbers and say, hey, look, you're going to do this, you're going to do that. And even though I may not be a contractor or a designer or whatnot, I know where the numbers make sense, and I can tell you, look, you're going to make money on this project, or you're not going to make money on this project, or don't go with these appliances, or don't go with this finishes because it's going to cut into your budget.
So I'm just curious. I mean, there's two things I want to ask. The process that you guys go about in working with investors and people who want to fund a project through real estate, and what kind of people that you work with on a day-to-day basis?
So the kind of people that we work with on a day-to-day basis is pretty much everybody, right? Well, I don't say everybody.
Like? Yeah.
We teach people how to invest in real estate, right? So I have a big passion, like I think I've mentioned, education for me is a big passion. Not only that, serving the underserved communities, and something we can talk about a little bit more is the opportunities for underserved communities to be able to invest in real estate.
Okay, we'll talk about that.
And not investing in real estate in buying a house per se, but the bigger picture, investing in funds and investing in securities side of it, right? Which is a big thing, and that's where the real money's at in this business.
Interesting.
So we deal with those people of that nature, but for the most part, most of our clients are professional investors, right? Meaning property investors that have a portfolio of properties and own several properties, or looking to bridge a gap between doing this or doing something of that nature. So that's the major part of our business. And to court investors to fund loans, now that's the hard part, right? Because most people who do that, you can't like Google rich people who have money who want to fund your loans, right? So how do you find that information?
How do you find those people? Because those informations are most often private or even like non-existent.
It really is non-existent, right? So that's all relationships. That's where the 20 years of being in the business has helped out.
Interesting. So let's say someone who is getting started, they have a portfolio and they want to get started with a project with you. What does your process entail or look like?
So our process is simple. Mainly it's you speak to me. Right? You talk to me, I'll look at your project, I'll look at what are you trying to accomplish, right? Are you looking to build more wealth? Are you trying to build more equity? Are you trying to buy more properties? Are you trying to build something? And I look at what your needs are.
Okay.
Right? And based off of that, either I leverage your portfolio, we look at new properties, so we'll put to a very comprehensive analysis of what you're trying to do.
Perfect. Cool. Thank you for explaining that. And because one of the things I want to provide value for people in here is that I'm sure there's people who are interested in finance or bettering their financial education, right? For someone who has no experience with investing and they want to get into other things like real estate or building up their portfolios, where would you recommend them to start?
That's a tough one, right?
And it varies, right? It varies, for sure.
And it's a tough one, and I say this because there is not many resources out there. It's one of those things that, in my opinion, has been held very tightly.
Right.
And those who have, and those who don't.
Gotcha.
Right? And it's people always talk about generational wealth and well, real estate is the biggest generational wealth builder there is, right? There's I talk to people all the time where it's like, I inherited a portfolio of 250 properties, or this or that, and there's it's generational wealth, and it's been in these family lines for a long time, right? So those families teach, right? They teach their kids, this is how you do it, this is how you keep growing our business and growing the business, and it's great. But it's hard to tap into that because nobody teaches you, right? So we'll get a little bit into the weeds and some of this part of stuff, but just something that, because it's passionate, it's something that I'm very passionate about.
Right.
Is in order to invest into some of the bigger like investment funds, into REITs, into mortgage funds, and a couple different things of that nature, you have to be what the Securities and Exchange Commission or the SEC deem an accredited investor.
And what does that mean?
Right. So that's a good question, right? So there's a couple of ways to become an accredited investor, and you can go look it up. You have to have minimum make $350,000 a year.
Okay.
You have to have a minimum net worth of $1 million, which does not include your primary residence. There's like 6 different ways to become an accredited investor.
Okay. So once you have these accredited investor,
once you're recognized as an accredited investor, it opens up the doors for what you can invest in.
Okay.
Right.
So then in a sense, like a majority of people don't have the.
I'm glad you bring that up.
To tap into this, which is what we're going to tap into, the opportunities, right?
And that's the thing. So right now, and I don't have my numbers exactly right because I forgot, I didn't really prepare them for this. But as of right now, the last time I read, only, I think like it's 2% of the American population is considered an accredited investor.
Wow. But
it gets worse.
Okay.
That 2% controls 90% of the wealth of this country.
Damn.
So tell me how
does that make sense?
How that makes sense.
I don't know. I mean, they pretty much have power.
Yes.
Control.
So the
right?
average
influence.
The other 98% of the population, the rest of us,
right,
invest in the themes like, oh, yeah, I have a 401k. Oh, I have my savings account. Right now, the average savings account is giving you an interest rate of 0.02%, right? Money market account, maybe if you're lucky, is going to give you 2.5%. Certificate of deposit is going to give you 3.5 to 4% interest rates, right? You're not going to get rich off of that.
Right.
You're never gonna get rich off of that.
Right.
Right. But then you invest in these funds where I get my investors' returns of 13, 14, 15% on their money because they're accredited investors.
For sure.
Because they're allowed to invest with me. So tell me, so one of the projects, the passion project that I've been working on, and it's been last 2 years in the making, and it's a lot of red tape, and it's dealing with the SEC and lawyers and a couple different things and compliance and things. And it's not out yet, but one of the things that I'm trying to do is to create an investment fund where you don't have to be an accredited investor.
Gotcha.
So it's more of the crowdfunding sourcing way, and that's kind of what we're trying to go about it. We haven't worked out all the details to it.
That's interesting. Yeah. In fact, I didn't even know how limited the opportunities to even tap into those resources were. From what you're telling me, it's like, dude, like you have to make this much amount of money and have this much amount of equity.
And look, and I understand the reasoning behind it, right? The reasoning behind it is because, there was a time where I came up and I said, hey, look, here's my sheet. I can make you 20% interest. Give me your life savings. And these grandmas gave people their life savings, and guys ran away with their money.
Oh, no.
There was no protection.
Right.
So now this is the protection. They're saying, look, if you check off these 6 boxes or some of them, we at least know that you're a savvy investor and you know what you're getting yourself into, so I don't feel bad if you lose your money. Okay,
so then basically the idea behind it is protection for both parties.
Correct.
But also to know that based on these data, that these types of people have this status to be an accredited investor, that they will actually become successful because we don't want to bankrupt somebody.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah. So I understand the reasoning behind it, but what it does is it's created this world where, only a certain group of people get a chance to keep building that.
It's kind of exclusive.
It's very exclusive. I call it the country club investor, right? And that's all you get. That's all you get, and I'm passionate about teaching our communities, our underserved, the Latino community, that just any community that has not had a lot of the opportunities to build that up because we don't
Right.
get a lot of that education, right? We're not told about these
Absolutely.
things. We're not told about these opportunities that maybe, hey, look, I could become an accredited investor, or I can invest in a fund and I can do this. But we're told, hey, you get a job, you go put your money in the savings account, or once you're set, you have a 401k.
Wow. And then
Right.
that's usually it, right?
And that's where it ends. And you're okay, and you live a decent life, but you
Yeah.
don't build wealth.
And what's your definition by wealth?
That's a good question. I think because wealth to me is freedom and liberties, but I think I'm so deep into this world
Right.
that it's hard for me to define wealth because
Okay.
I see it on a daily basis, and I see these crazy exorbitant numbers that just there's numbers on a spreadsheet to me.
Okay. Gotcha. The reason I asked because you mentioned, it's accumulating this wealth, and some people, their
I mean, look, I can tell
definition
you,
of
I can tell you the traditional, definition of wealth is that if with what you've built, you can impact your next 3 generations.
Nice. I like that. I like the
That's
definition.
usually what the traditional, true wealth is. And that's why I call it generational wealth. If you can impact the next 3 generations, it's there's a cycle, and it says that if within 3 generations you usually will either lose it all, yeah.
And it's interesting that you mentioned that because even then, even if I have come across, millionaires and people who have made a lot of money, wealth, the aspect of the definition of wealth isn't really defined. It's like wealth is like happiness. Wealth is, health, right? It could be, right, from all kinds of definitions.
So-
but I like how you mentioned it. It's or from that end that you can be passed down to a generation, assuming that it can, help them not just survive but thrive.
You set them up, yeah. But and to me, I use a different definition, not definition, but I use a different subject on it. And I've guided my life, and I build, and when I coach people, and I mentor people, and I talk to
Right.
people. To me, it's not about building wealth, right? That's a factor. But to me, it's more about success.
Okay.
And the question I always ask people is, what does success mean to you?
Gotcha. So-
Because we can all be successful in a different form, right?
Right.
I coached one guy a long time ago, and when I asked him his definition of success he goes, I want to be able to play golf 3 times a week.
wow.
He goes, if I can play golf 3 times a week, I know I'm successful. I spoke to somebody else, who said, if I can work till 2:00 every day and be home to feed my kids and watch TV and help them with their homework, to me, that's being successful,
That's powerful.
right? But then you talk to somebody else and they say, I want a Lamborghini. Once I get my Lamborghini, that's success, right? And I'm not saying, and neither one of them is wrong.
Right.
Neither one of them is
I
wrong.
just thought it was funny because like the material aspect.
Yeah,
of
right. So everybody has a different definition of success, and that's part of how I coach salespeople. Right? It's finding that out.
Okay.
Because now I know what's going to drive you.
Right.
Right. Now I know. Some people.
How to motivate them.
Like I can tell you myself. And it sounds weird to say, but I'm not motivated by money.
I can see that.
Right? To me, it's not about how much money I've made or making, right? It's the fact that the people that I take care of, or the people that I'm responsible for, have what they need. They're comfortable. They're living the lives that they want. To me, that's more important.
Nice.
It's not a number. It's not about being able to say, hey, this is what my checking account looks like, or
Right.
it has nothing to do with that. It's more about coming home and being able to enjoy those times with people, right? So to me, it's not about
Freedom.
It's about freedom, yeah. But to me, it's not about money. I'm not motivated by money. I'm more motivated by legacy and leaving something behind.
Love that.
That my loved ones and my family and can say, what, he accomplished something that we're proud of. He made a difference. Even if it's a small thing in my little sphere of my world, that I've made a difference. And to me, that's my driving force,
Love
right?
that.
To educate people, to teach people, and to help people on the path. And I tell a story that one of the things that's impacted my life the most in business was one of the guys that I took that one of the jobs I had. He was a mortgage guy, and he had just got in the business, or he had been in the business for a couple of years and always struggling to get by. And I taught him some stuff, and I never really thought I made, I don't remember a whole lot of, the interactions with him because, like I said, I had 100 employees, right?
For
So,
sure.
but I did. I put a lot of effort into everybody that I talked to, and everybody it was not going through the motions. And I did this and that. Fast forward, I want to say maybe a year and a half or 2 years, we were at a little cocktail party, like a networking event, and I'm grabbing a drink, and then I get a tap on the shoulder, and I turn around, and it's this guy, and he's like, "Hey, Byron, what's up?" And I'm like, "Hey, man, what's up, saying hi, and he was with his wife, and he's like, "Do you have a quick second?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." And he grabs his wife, and he says, "I just want to tell you," both of him and his wife were saying, he's like, we just want to tell you that we closed escrow on our first house," he goes, "a week ago. If it wasn't for the things that you taught me and motivated me to do, I would have never have been able to accomplish that."
Wow.
And things like that to me make a difference, right? I've made an impact on somebody's life.
Right.
It had nothing to do with how much money I made.
For sure.
Right? But it had a difference in somebody's life. And to me, that's why I always tell people it's success. And like, what is that? What is that for you? Right? What does that mean to you? Because we all have a different definition, and we all want to accomplish different things in life.
And I like that you pointed that out too, because I would feel a lot of the younger generations can be distorted by what success and wealth means to them, because they think that it's fame or recognition or materialistic possessions. Yeah. But ultimately, from a lot of people that I invite here as a guest, they oftentimes, especially if they're successful in their field, it's the definition of what makes them happy, and it's creating that self-awareness of what is fulfilling and quality life for them.
Yeah, no, exactly, and it's true. It's I think, it's easy, right? Because we've all fallen, prey to it. Is to get caught up with the Joneses and get caught up in the materialistic things and want this and I want that and I want to, success is flying on a private jet and doing this and it's, and it's all this money and showing it on my social media feed and do this and that, and for some people that may be success, right? I get it. But not for everybody else.
For sure.
So that's my thing too. Is the way you motivate people, the way you lead somebody is it's personal.
Love that.
Right, it's personal, and if I know what you're looking for to accomplish in life, then I can help you roadmap that and get there.
Love that. Thank you for sharing that. I do want to pivot into that opportunity program that you mentioned, and even then, because there's 98% people that don't have access. Like, what are some resources that you're providing and educating them so that they can be guided towards the right direction, or at least more towards whatever success or wealth means to them?
Yeah, no, and look, and the problem right now is that there isn't any resources, at least in my opinion, right? Gotcha. I've looked for stuff, and there's some stuff out there, and then the courses that are out there are you have to have money to buy these courses, and then the courses they don't teach you much, right? They're invest in real estate. We'll show you how to flip properties, and buy my book and I'll show you how to do this, buy this or do this, and they're selling you a product, and I just, that doesn't sit well with me.
Right. Monetizing their knowledge.
And look, and I'm okay with that, right? I understand it's a bit, we're business people, we're all need to make a living, so monetize it, and I understand as long as you're giving something of true value. Right? Because a lot of these courses that people take, and I'm not talking about all of them, there's some good ones out there, but a lot of these courses that are out there don't teach you a whole lot, right? It's an opportunity for the guy to make, $1,500 because you showed up to his seminar for a couple of days, right? Or bought his book or do this or that. And, and there's some resources that are, have actual value. So it's not a lot. And that's just one aspect of investing, right? It's by teaching you how to buy and sell real estate. There's so many other avenues, right? Like I said, the investing in REITs, they're investing in debt funds and investing in this and stock. People think, I'm going to hire, a Merrill Lynch guy, or I'm going to hire, a banker, and I'm going to give them, and we trust those people. Right. But they're still only limited to what they give us because they're only going to offer you, for the most part, what you ask for. Right. Those guys are a lot more transactional, right? They're getting money off of your trades. They're making money off of every time they buy a stock for you or something. So there's I think there's a gap, right? And that's one of the things that I want to do, and I'm trying to develop it, and I'm working on it. There's not a lot of resources for education on that, and that's the biggest challenge I've been coming across. If I was ready and I launched my fund, this opportunity fund tomorrow,
right?
It's an uphill battle to educate people on how to do it, right? Even though I can give you this opportunity, if you don't understand it,
it's not going to make
sense. So part of the platform that we need to build is a lot more education behind it. So that's why it's taking longer than expected.
And that's fine. I think it's better that you're building something that can be, suited for many people that you're trying to serve than to have a rushed product or program or service, whatever it is, right? Now, what do you expect for this to come out? Because I'm actually curious myself.
When or where?
Yeah, like what's the time span?
If everything goes well, it needs to happen this year, 2023.
This year? Okay, so we're recording this in March, and then maybe around this year.
Yeah, before the end of the year, I would like to have some stuff out. Yes.
Cool, awesome. Well, I think I'm looking forward to that myself as well. Hopefully, people that tap into these podcasts, because I'm putting out so much this year, they tap into this and see whatever it is that you'll be up to, and then we'll put the links up in there to get connected.
I appreciate
with you.
it now, definitely.
Right. So for anybody that is tuning in as of right now, where can they get connected with you or just ask you for any more questions like this?
So I'm all over social media.
Yeah, you have a couple multiple pages, right?
Yeah, so our company page, either www.jssfinancial.com or at JSS Financial on all the social media platforms. To find me personally, my handle is The Casual Executive.
Okay.
It's I've built that brand that I'm working on is the fact that, look, this is how you see me show up to board meetings.
Okay.
The
casual
executive.
I like that. I can see that.
I've been in there's
so good.
there's a reasoning behind
there's
a reasoning behind that, because look, I can tell you this. I got into management and at the corporate level pretty young. Also coming from, like I said, immigrant background where I didn't have a lot of resources. I didn't have a lot of, my dad's a truck driver. My mom's a seamstress, so I didn't have that education where it's like, oh, this is how you buy a suit. This is how you wear a tie and this and that. Right. So I remember coming to these board meetings, at banks of high level executives,
suits and everything.
With they just got their dress to the nines, and I'm wearing my Macy's suit or my Mervyn suit if you're a little older.
Oh man,
you
just brought back a memory.
You know what I mean? And it's like and feeling that I didn't belong. And then one of my mentors, and it's like an older woman that talked to me one day, and she said, and I was quiet at these meetings and I didn't say anything, and she said, you have a seat at this table for a reason. Right? And it took me a little bit of time to get into my own, and then I was able to come to the conclusion where it's like it didn't matter what I was dressed like or what I looked like, because what I have in here or what I had to say had more value than that.
What you provided.
So that's where that kind of spurred from, as the casual executive that, I can, and not only that, we're in LA, we're more casual, wear t-shirts and jeans for everything we do.
Nowadays, even then, a lot of people are starting to dismiss the idea that you have to be suit and tie in order to represent your business owner or the CEO. Like that image or perception isn't as fittable. If anything, it's more of a style, dude.
It is
to wear like that, right?
It is, yeah. So, but that's where that at least that came from. So yeah, so that's on social media. I'm the Casual Executive.
Nice. And then what does JSS stand for, if you don't mind me asking?
It's just the initials of our kids.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. And you built that up there from there. Now, as far as the things that you're looking for besides that program, what are some of the things that you're excited for your business, even for yourself?
So for the business, we're looking to expand right now. We're doing some growth, looking to expand into other territories, other states. So we're kind of trying to build our model and just replicate it, right? Something that we can do, multiply it over and over again. So that's one of our goals for 2023 is to expand. Even if, it's a calculated growth. So expand a little bit. For me personally, and it's something I teach and I talk about all the time, especially for business owners, is what's your exit plan? I'll be 44 next week or in 2 weeks from now.
You sure?
Yeah, I'll be 44, so I still have some time in me.
But I'm just saying that because you don't look like your 40s.
Oh, I appreciate it. But I still have some time in me in the business. But I already want to start looking at how do I exit the business? And I know I'm realistic. I know I don't think I'll ever exit the business 100%, right?
But you want to have that just in case.
But what do I need to do? What do I need to set in motion now so that in 10 years from now I can take a step back?
If that ever needs to happen.
not if, because it has to.
Oh, when
Yes. But when I need to step back, but the business can continue running.
Right.
So to me, that's my personal part of it. Is that's one of the things that I'm working on. Is and I'm still not there yet. Right. I'm building some marketing platforms,
Right.
social media stuff.
And you're teaching your kids and how
Teaching my son, yeah, but and trying to build something that we can be proud of, and but it's also something that I can, hopefully at some point, walk away from a little bit where it can still succeed and it can still move, and maybe I'm out doing interviews, I'm out, talking, speaking or doing things
Well,
of that.
speaking of which, you are pivoting to that, right? Like where you're trying to put out more branding and content. Talk to us to some of your ideas on that end.
Yeah, so we're definitely trying to do like the rest, and put out some content. We've struggled a little bit, and we've talked to you about it. And I think that's how we met. But yeah, definitely taking a lot of advice from you and trying to build that brand and I've struggled with that a little bit because I've put out content and I've kind of shotgunned it a little bit, and I've tried lots of different approaches and see what sticks. Without finding our niche and a little bit and kind of doing it our way. So we're still developing that and kind of putting that out there because I want my personality to come through and I want to be able to speak. But I do know that my topics can sometimes be a little bit dry.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that because as dry, quote unquote, the conversations behind finance, mortgage, real estate has been in the past few years. I think there's a new wave that's coming into it. It's just how do you position that in a way where it is interesting, right? Like there's a lot of now content on just TikTok and even Instagram and YouTube where they're educating people in a funny way or an interesting and entertaining way. And I talked to a lot about this to other business owners where before, like the casual way of creating content of informative, just talking about the story was just the way to do it. But then even for me, someone who is very invested in social media, I'm looking at like, dang, how did they even think of this thing? Like for example, and it's probably it's probably one of the most stupidest thing I've ever seen, but like not stupid, sorry, I wouldn't even call it that. I just think that it's so simple yet so doable. Like I've seen real estate, this groups of real estate guys, they're doing trends while talking about real estate.
Yeah.
They're dancing, they're having fun with it, and they're getting followers, and it's like they're getting a bunch of like exposure. Now I don't know if that's working for them, but if they really want a brand, they got it.
Yeah. No, I agree, and that's the stuff that I'm struggling with, right? Because I see that too, and I'm like, do I mimic that and try to become that, or try to and that's not me. It's not who I am.
Right.
So I'm trying to do it my own way, and I've tried to educate people, but it comes off dry, and it's hard to capture. So we're trying to figure it out, and I think, just me personally, I do better in this format.
For sure.
Long format where I can explain and I can talk, because I can talk a lot.
Branding,
right?
yeah.
And I'm more of a conversationalist, and I can reach out and I can share with people and talk. So I think this format does better for me. But trying to figure out, and I know that's one of the conversations you and I had a while back, was about how to build the short format to build to your long format and kind of vice versa.
Yeah, I could see why you want to lean towards a podcast, especially once we come up with the content. I can't wait to like put them together.
Yeah.
Because like I got some solid content that those are some of the reasons why I ask certain questions, is because I position it in a way where when I strip this into a content, it would make sense.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. No, and that's one of the things that's why I would, when you invited me on, I jumped on the opportunity, because I'm
glad you saw the opportunity.
I'm excited. Honestly, it's more of this, and it's a selfish thing. I'm excited to see what you do with this.
Oh man!
Right? I'm really excited.
I actually hope most people see that, because there's a reason why I invite certain people, and it's not just for the aspect of me, creating more reach, but it's for them to also get the content that I think that would serve them.
Oh, like I said, right. I'm coming into this 100% selfishly, saying, hey, I'm going to steal this content to be able to promote myself, right?
You selfish guy.
Right? Look, I know it is what it is, right? Like that's just how it is, right? We work off of each other, and I hope to add value to you and be able to be able to share with you and be able to do some of that stuff. So look, I'm not that guy who's just trying to take people's stuff, but I'm excited because somebody who, like, that's a professional, I'm like, oh, I want to see how this turns out, right?
Oh, it's gonna look great. It's gonna look great. Okay, cool. Let's pivot towards the end right now, so that way we don't take too much of your time. You already drove out here from Agoura Hills, so speaking of which, for topping it off, we already mentioned where people can find you. For anybody listening right now, whether business owners or people who just looking to learn, do you have any last messages or any promotions, anything you want to put out to for people to hear?
Look, I'm not going to promote anything. You know, I promoted myself. Hopefully,
I mean, you already did.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. You know, you guys know how to contact us and reach out, and we love to help you out. We love helping people. We love educating people. We love guiding people down the right path. But I will leave people with one thing, right? And this is just something that I'm passionate about, is invest in yourself. You know, like I remember once I did another interview once, and somebody said, "What's the biggest investment as a finance guy? What's the biggest investment somebody can make?" And I said, invest in yourself. And he was kind of got taken aback because he was expecting me to say real estate or the stock market. You know, it's invest in yourself. And I know that's a kind of a cliche term that people throw around a lot.
No, I like it.
But it's see value in yourself, see value in reading, studying, and sharpen your tools and know your craft. You know, if you want to, like I've always told my kids or anybody that I get the chance to mentor who's younger, is I don't care what you do, but be the best at it. Outwork everybody. You know, invest in yourself. Be the best that you can be at what you do. You know, learn about it. Learn about, every aspect of it. You know, hire somebody, a mentor, talk to people. You know, do anything that you can to build value for yourself. Because that's what's going to help propel your career and your future and your success.
Yeah. And that's just like how you've done it for yourself. You were very invested in yourself, or you said obsessed. One of the two.
A little bit obsessed, I think so, yeah.
That's awesome. Well, thanks for coming by over here, Byron. I appreciate your time to share some of your knowledge and your story as well. For everybody listening, I hope you guys enjoyed, right? So thanks again, Byron.
No, I appreciate it. Thanks for the time. And, I had a lot of fun.
Awesome. I'm glad you did. All right. For anybody tuning in, we'll see you guys in the next episode.